Have you ever heard a Japanese colonel mutter, almost in disbelief, "We can't train like them. We just don't have what they have"? You might assume he meant the Navy SEALs, the SAS, or Israel Special Forces. But no, he was speaking of Filipino soldiers. Filipino. It sounds like a twist from a war movie. But this wasn't fiction. This happened quietly, without cameras or headlines, in Mindanao during a routine joint exercise between Japan and the Philippines. On paper, nothing remarkable. But in the thick, humid jungle air, the Japanese officers saw something unforgettable. One moment in particular stood out. A group of Filipino soldiers, soaked to the bone, caked in mud, pushing through an endurance drill so brutal most would have quit. No complaints, no pauses, just relentless grit. When it ended, a Japanese officer, known for his composure, froze. A long, silent pause. Then he shook his head. This was Colonel Masaru Hidetaka, a veteran with 25 years of service, a master of asymmetric warfare, psychological resilience, NATO-trained, an advisor in Afghanistan, an elite academy instructor. He had seen the full spectrum of human endurance, or so he thought, until he came to the Philippines. What he saw wasn't just soldiers training, it was men bearing the scars of storms, insurgencies, personal losses, yet moving forward with unshakable heart. Equipment worn past its prime, rations barely enough. Yet in every drill, every shout of "Kaya natin too," they gave everything, and then some. It wasn't raw force that stunned him. It was the way they smiled while bleeding, laughed through exhaustion, carried their wounded without slowing. That's when it hit him. What they had couldn't be issued, taught, or bought. This isn't something we can teach. It's not technical. It's in their soul, Hidetaka admitted quietly. He expected to teach. Instead, he left humbled. One night, during a navigation drill in the rain, a soldier tumbled into a ravine, dislocating his shoulder. Hidetaka braced for the drill to end. It didn't. Two comrades rigged ropes, climbed down, hauled him up, and all three finished the course together. Not a word of complaint. "Sir, quitting isn't in our blood," the injured soldier said simply. Filipino resilience wasn't a tactic. It was culture, faith, family, muscle memory of centuries of rising after every fall. Hidetaka traveled across Luzon, the Visayas, back to Mindanao, observing a thread that never broke. A deep belief in something bigger than oneself. Soldiers prayed before missions, not for survival, but for strength to serve. He realized this was a secret no field manual could capture. He began writing, not for press, not for reports, but for himself. The stories grew personal. Soldiers slipping their boots off for barefoot children, mothers waiting for sons in small homes, every act of quiet heroism engraved in his mind. Weeks passed in humid jungles and rolling hills. Hidetaka's days blurred into drills, marches, and field exercises. But it was in the small moments that the Filipino soldier revealed his soul. Before dawn, a team prepared for a river crossing exercise. A young recruit struggled against the current. Without hesitation, a teammate waded in, guiding him across. Another reached out from the bank. "We fight together. We stand together. That is how we survive," a soldier told him. In Japan, discipline was measured in obedience. Here it was inseparable from trust and loyalty. Later, during a grueling 40-kilometer march, soldiers supported each other over uneven terrain, sharing burdens without hesitation. Hidetaka began to see resilience as inherited, forged through generations of hardship. Across Mindanao and the Visayas, Hidetaka noticed another theme: faith. Soldiers gathered before missions, praying not for safety, but for strength to endure, to protect, to persevere. He accompanied them to evening mass in remote chapels. He didn't understand the words, but felt the reverence in bowed heads, the conviction in lifted voices. Faith was practical. It shaped courage, reinforced bonds, gave meaning beyond orders or strategy. Even small gestures reflected this spirit. Soldiers leaving boots for barefoot children in villages. Compassion, humility, and purpose were as vital as any weapon. Despite intensity, humor flourished. Soldiers joked mid-drill, recounted misadventures, or laughed at mud-soaked blunders. In Japan, laughter was rare in formal exercises. Here, it was survival. Humor created cohesion, eased tension, reminded soldiers of humanity amid chaos. Hidetaka's notebook overflowed with quiet heroism. Sergeant Rosalinda, mother of 3, led a Typhoon Haiyan rescue, carrying 17 civilians with a broken rib. Private Antonio taught literacy to orphans during a peacekeeping mission abroad. Corporal Jason carried a frozen Japanese recruit across a flooded trench, smiling as if it were nothing. "But he is my brother. We fight together now. That makes him family," Jason said. Family, duty, sacrifice. These were inseparable. Hidetaka began to see the Philippines itself as a teacher. Its people had survived colonization, storms, and instability. Each soldier carried that history in their bones. In Bukidnon, cadets marched through fog and steep hills, singing traditional Kundiman tunes that spoke of love, loss, and hope. Humor and song reminded them suffering was not the end. It was part of life, part of surviving, part of carrying on. Resilience wasn't just strength, it was perspective. Filipino soldiers endured because they found meaning in hardship, transforming adversity into pride and identity. The quiet moments left the deepest impression. Soldiers cleaning rifles while humming, mothers awaiting sons, children drawing fathers in uniform. Every small act carried weight. Filipino soldiers did not fight for recognition. They fought because it was right, because someone had to. Hidetaka documented it all. Smiles in mud, prayers, hands lifting others, laughter amid exhaustion. Courage was quiet. Valor did not demand applause. True strength was persistent, unrelenting, and lived. One night in Samar, sitting by a bonfire with tired trainees, Hidetaka found himself speaking unexpectedly. "In all my years, I thought discipline meant obedience. Here it means choosing to stand for what matters, even when it hurts." The soldiers nodded. They lived it. They understood instinctively. By then, Hidetaka fully grasped the essence of the Filipino soldier. Discipline and skill were underpinned by heart, soul, and voluntary courage. When Hidetaka returned to Tokyo, he was outwardly the same. But inside, a quiet revolution had taken place. The man who arrived to instruct now carried understanding. He thought constantly of what he had seen. Soldiers saving civilians in floods, carrying each other across rivers, completing 40-kilometer marches without complaint. These acts existed because they believed in something beyond themselves. Colleagues noticed subtle changes. Hidetaka no longer reported in clinical terms. He recounted stories of courage, sacrifice, and loyalty. His lectures shifted focus from tactics to human endurance. During a seminar, a young officer asked, "Which Southeast Asian army has the strongest infantry?" Hidetaka paused. Then he said quietly, "Spiritually, the Philippines." The room was stunned. Not tactically, not logistically, spiritually. It was rare to hear such a word in military circles, but it captured the truth. Hidetaka could not stay away. He traveled back to Luzon, the Visayas, and Mindanao. Faces and stories changed, but the core thread remained: unshakable belief in service, duty, and something greater than oneself. In Baguio, cadets marched in fog, frost biting at their skin. They joked, they sang, they endured. "Pain is temporary, laughter is forever," one said. Hidetaka smiled. Heart, soul, endurance, all in one. Remote outposts offered quiet heroism. Young lieutenants stitching their own wounds, widows carrying memories of fallen soldiers, mothers waiting patiently for sons. These weren't tales of glory, they were lived courage. Hidetaka began documenting them meticulously. Mothers, children, acts of kindness, laughter, and exhaustion. Every note became a testament to living courage. Hidetaka realized true greatness was a choice. The choice to stand when the world offered no safety, to serve when unnoticed, to love amid sacrifice. One night by a bonfire in Samar, he whispered, "Discipline is choosing what matters, even when it hurts." Soldiers nodded silently. They had lived it. He returned to Japan as a storyteller. At academies and seminars, he shared images. Soldiers wading through floods, carrying civilians, enduring 40-kilometer marches. He read letters. "Thank you for seeing us, sir." Most only see our uniforms, not our hearts. You did both responses poured in. Veterans across Asia confirmed his observations. Even a retired Japanese general wrote, "In my youth, I feared them. Now I honor them." You reminded us of bravery is in the heart. Hidetaka returned to the Philippines, this time as a volunteer lecturer, chronicler, and witness. He collected stories from soldiers, widows, orphans, veterans. Every story reflected quiet heroism. Sergeant Rosalinda rescuing civilians during Typhoon Haiyan, Private Antonio teaching abroad. Heroism here was quiet, uncelebrated, inherent, profound. Years later, Hidetaka passed away in Osaka. By request, part of his ashes returned to Bukidnon, to the hilltop base where he first witnessed Filipino soldiers' soul. A plaque beneath a mango tree reads, "No soldier trains like a Filipino, because no soldier loves like a Filipino." Through stories, lectures, and writings, he connected nations and generations, showing the world's strength is more than firepower. It is heart, sacrifice, and purpose. The Filipino soldier fights not to be seen, but because it is who he is. Endures because the world demands it, often unnoticed. Loves quietly, serves silently, sacrifices freely. Hidetaka arrived expecting to teach. He left a witness, a storyteller, a man transformed. The Filipino soldier had not only impressed him, it had changed him. And through him, the world began to see what true strength really looks like.